Dismissive avoidants have a very unique way of falling in love. And they tend to fall in love when a crucial thing happens. But this isn't necessarily great news. In today's video, I'm going to break down for you what that ingredient is that often causes a dismissive avoidant to finally fall in love and lower their guard and want to show up, and why you may need to be aware of this and what to do in your response to this behavior. First and foremost, one thing I talk about all the time on this channel that we have to just recognize is that dismissive avoidants are always operating in this state of feelings minus fears. And what this means is that because dismissive avoidants go through the pain of childhood emotional neglect growing up, they tend to have these deep fears of deeply connecting because their subconsciously stored associations towards connection come from childhood. And they have this idea that, well, when I was a child and I felt vulnerable and I needed things, especially emotionally, because a lot of the time this childhood emotional neglect kind of flies under the radar. Like dismissive avoidants may have a lot of stability in their home, food on the table, structure, but there can just be this total absence of emotional nurturing, of communicating about emotions, feeling safe to express their emotions. So as children, this aspect of themselves gets very rejected. Like essentially they feel like, okay, this part of me is wrong and bad and defective. And when I do have feelings, I get shamed. Maybe I get told I'm being a crybaby or stop crying. Children should be seen and not heard. Like, there can be all sorts of messaging that's there. Or maybe a parent just constantly acts really frustrated when a dismissive avoidant expresses their emotions or doesn't hold space for it. And so as a result, DAs get this conditioned pattern of learning, like, okay, this part of myself is not acceptable. So I have to stuff it down and repress it. But when it comes to romantic relationships, there's different pillars of what it means to connect. We've got an intellectual pillar. We have a physical pillar, like physical affection, physical space. We have a sexual pillar, and we have an emotional pillar. And you can think of this pillar of relationships for a DA as being something that feels really unsafe. And in fact, you'll often see that dismissive avoidants tend to do well in like friendship relationships because they can really just stay connected, thriving in the intellectual or mental pillar. And, they can sort of control the physical space pillar as much as they want and feel like it's socially acceptable to do so. And then the other two pillars, they don't really have to deal with in a friendship type relationship. And so DAs generally feel really safe and do quite well in friendship relationships. But when we've got the romantic components where we have to really address, especially the emotional pillar, this can be something that the dismissive avoidant really doesn't feel comfortable with. So they're operating in their feelings minus fears. The more connection and the more attachment is there, the more of a deep bond is built, the more fears are going to come up because the subconscious mind is an association-making machine. So it literally is designed to associate one thing with another. So if very close, intimate relationships in terms of like the emotional connection, the vulnerability, if their last experience or their first major programmed experience was with their caregivers, because you're very vulnerable to your caregivers, they take care of you. If your stored associations about that are, okay, well, the emotional thing it didn't go well for me then the subconscious mind reprojects that out and essentially assumes that the outcome will be the same, even though your conscious mind or the conscious mind of a person may be able to clearly decipher that, hey, this person that I'm dating is not like my caregivers from childhood. Even if the conscious mind knows better, the subconscious doesn't. And it's really important to pay attention to the fact that our subconscious mind is making roughly 95 to 97% of our decisions in terms of our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors, our actions. So we have to recognize that this is what's driving this. Now, as a result of this feeling minus fear cycle, the more close the connection becomes, the more the fears start catching up to the feelings and the more they start becoming magnified, causing the DA to sometimes, it can almost hit a neutral point, right? Where the feelings are strong, but the fears are also really strong. And it can feel like the DA is kind of pulled in two different directions and self-sabotages the relationship. But when there is distance and when there is space, the fears drop off, right? They feel like, okay, they're not being magnified. So the DA tends to get really into their feelings. Now, there's more to it than this. There's a couple other points in here. The next reason that this really happens and plays a role is also dismissive avoidants learn to deal with their childhood and adapt to it by becoming hyper independent. So they learn that, okay, if I don't need anything emotionally from anybody else, then at least I feel relief. It feels worse to long for something and constantly feel like it's not there than it does to deny that I need it. And when I deny that I even need it, I feel better. And so dismissive avoidance, that's their adaptation. And so literally what you will end up seeing is that because dismissive avoidance do that. They feel good about that. That gives them a relief. They have positive feelings around that compared to what it felt like otherwise. And so they tend to see themselves as this type of person who thrives in distance, who needs their space, who needs their time alone, who needs their freedom and autonomy, because that's what gave them relief in childhood. That's what made them feel better. And so when somebody sees that in a dismissive avoidant and can respect it, it doesn't mean that you don't ask for your needs. It doesn't mean you don't make compromises. And we'll talk about that stuff in a second. But when you can see that that's the type of person that you're dating, and you can honor that in them and say, look, I get that you need your independence. I want to support that. And I also have needs too. And you can learn to hash that out. The dismissive avoidant feels seen, they feel heard, they feel accepted. And when there's that sort of space of absence, they have room to long for the person that they're dating. So you'll see that as a result of this, when they're in this feelings minus fear cycle, and then when they feel like, hey, my needs are being met, they're being understood. The third part of this is that some of the deepest unmet needs from childhood, because they got their freedom and independence and autonomy, right? That came through in childhood and made them feel better. The things they didn't get met were to be empathized with, to be seen, to be understood, to be acknowledged. And when somebody in their adult life is able to do that for them and empathize with them and express that empathy and see them and understand them and acknowledge them and make them feel like they are acceptable instead of shameful, because DAs have a lot of shame wounds, these tend to be the types of needs that dismissive avoidants will fall in love over, the types of needs that dismissive avoidants will go into limerence over, really, because they'll get this extreme infatuation, because extreme infatuation happens when somebody meets our deeply unmet needs from childhood. And so I'm not saying like leverage this information and make somebody fall in love with you, but I'm saying like these are things that the dismissive avoidant is looking for. I just wanted to pop in here and let you know we are doing a 7-day free trial to the All Access Membership Pass at PDS, which means you get access to literally everything inside of the school. And this includes the 4 live webinars I do with our students every single week. And on top of that, you get access to all of our different courses. We have over 55 different courses on relationships, communication, boundaries, emotional mastery, guilt and shame, learning your needs, so many different facets that are really important to master our lives and feel really good about our lives going forward. And last but not least, there's a daily community event. We have trained facilitators and coaches who are in there doing that work, showing up to support you on your journey every single day. Please join me on the other side. Come check it out. See if it's a fit for you. I'd love to see you there. Go ahead and sign up by clicking the link in the description box below. Now, if you're the loved one of a DA, you have to make room for yourself too. These relationships will never work out if you just people please, do all these things over here that the DA is looking for or needs at the expense of yourself, because you'll just get resentful, become critical. The frustration and resentment there will just come out in different ways that will really taint the relationship anyways. So what you have to do is validate those needs, clearly express that you see those needs in your loved one, but say, and I also have different needs than you. And here are some of mine. I know these are yours, these are mine. How can we make compromises together? We have to normalize the discussion about needs in relationships for them to work. So if you need more time, maybe you make it more quality time instead of quantity. Or maybe you come to a midpoint, right? Maybe the DA would want to hang out once a week. Maybe you want to hang out 4 times a week. Maybe you do 2 or 3. Maybe you do 2 and a phone call. Like, we have to normalize having these open discussions with our partners and loved ones, because this is how things end up really working ahead, right? This is how we end up like building a strong foundation where we know each other, we see each other, we understand each other. And that's what makes for a secure bond and connection. That's what makes for a lasting relationship. So the more that you are able to do this and normalize the conversation, it will actually allow your DA loved one to feel heard and seen and understood, but it will also allow you to conscientiously make space for your own needs and your own boundaries to be expressed too. And these are massive steps towards becoming securely attached with a partner overall. Let me know about your experiences with love and dismissive avoidance. I would love to hear if you are a dismissive avoidant, what's your experience with falling in love in somebody's absence? If you're the loved one of a DA, what do you find happens when there's a little bit of distance and space? And if you want to check out tomorrow's video, please like, share, and subscribe down below so you don't miss it. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching.